Right.
So I find that people set up a plan to fail from day one when it's not aligned with what they actually want at the core of them, what they're willing to sacrifice for.
Welcome to the Disruptance Podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric Forney and Michael Bounds.
Every week on the show, we aim to disrupt the way real estate agents and entrepreneurs think about their business in order to make them more profitable and productive. And Mike, this week, I want to disrupt the way agents feel about business plans by sharing the 8 ways that agents fail to achieve their goals. And so I want to flip a little bit of the episode on the head, and we could talk about all the ways to be successful, but that's what every other boring show is doing. And so what I want to talk about is why people make business plans and fail to achieve their desired outcome. And I see these patterns show up a lot when coaching other agents, but I think more than anything, when I go and reflect on my own life or my own business or the way I am thinking or feeling about myself or about my business in the moment, what we've really defined is the 8 ways that we've failed.
We've failed. Like, these are all things that we've done.
Yeah. And so I just want to make that disclaimer because I want people to understand that trying to achieve perfection is a plan that's already been predetermined to fail. And so I want to share the ways that we have failed and continued to fail, so that others can, one, give themselves permission to understand that trying to strive for perfection is unattainable.
Grace.
And it's just iteration, right? Being an entrepreneur is a game of iteration. It is a journey of becoming the best you possible. And the medium to become the best you possible is business. You know, I say that business and parenting are 2 of the best ways to grow as a person, because nothing will test you more and require you to get better every day than having to be a parent and having to try to lead people who have no loyalty and no requirements to necessarily be with you tomorrow.
Right.
And so
it's crazy how similar they are.
It is so similar, and they're and they always require you to be better every day, and that's the beauty of it, right? There is no finish line. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. There isn't an outcome or an end point. It is just you on a journey.
It's the journey,
getting better as a self. And so one of the number one ways that I see agents fail is not having clearly defined and aligned goals. I want to go back to that. Clearly defined and aligned goals. You have to have your goals set clearly, and they have to be aligned with what you actually want. Authentically what you as a person want, not what sounds good when you tell other people about it, but they have to be actually aligned with your core values and your beliefs about the entire you, the person.
Yeah. Tell me more about, give me an example of that.
So I think that if someone says that the most, that what they want to be is the greatest parent possible, and their definition of how they would be winning at being the best parent possible is that they're going to pick up their child and take their child to school every day and be on the PTA and volunteer to come in and bring cookies for lunches and birthdays and be
those are all noble things. That's great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
However, you probably aren't also going to have enough time in the day to run a triathlon every week or every month and sell 5 houses a month and do all the other things that you potentially want to do in your life. Right. So I find that people set up a plan to fail from day one when it's not aligned with what they actually want at the core of them, what they're willing to sacrifice for.
Right.
What are you willing to give up after you've defined your goal?
It's almost like we throw out we just throw out a number. Yeah. We just throw out a goal, and then we don't really reconcile how that affects our life. So we either don't plan, or when we do plan, it's a poor plan that cannot be executed. So those are the 2. I know I have been a victim. I won't say victim. I have done this myself in my business, and that's not a place for you to be. Literally, if you set up a plan that's made, you're gonna fail from the beginning if you bite off too much that you can chew.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can't say that you want to be highly spontaneous, and then also say that you want to run an Ironman and sell 150 homes this year.
So how do you do that? You just got to get clear.
That's
the
right.
thing. You got to get clear
right.
on what it is that you actually want.
Yeah, you have to get really clear on what matters the most. I love that Gary has talked about a lot how he could have built Keller Williams faster, and he would have had to have given up things that he was unwilling to give up in order to do that.
Okay.
Because he wasn't willing to give up his marriage. He wasn't willing to give up more of his health, because there was times in which both of those two things failed. And he wasn't willing to do that more or again in order to build the company faster. And guess what? It still worked out pretty well, right? It's still the largest real estate company in the world.
Right.
It's just that maybe it took a few years longer than what he would have liked for it to have taken. And yet it gave him what he actually wanted, which was his health and his marriage and his family.
I was just having a conversation with another agent, an agent the other day, and she was on it was in a recruiting type thing. We were sitting down, and she was on a team. She had left the team, and the team she was on did 24 million. And so she was like, I want to do 24 million. So we sat there and we were talking, and she sold about 3 houses per month. And so she was doing well. She did good.
Yeah.
So she had never taken the time to go back and do the math on what it takes to get to 24 million. So we sat down and we said, okay, you want to do 24 million. What does that look like? And we knew her numbers. We knew how much her average sales price was, how many. And we literally broke it down as if you sell 4 buys and 4 sells per month, that's 24 million. And when I was able to articulate it in a way that was so clear, she was like, I could so do that.
Yeah.
So that is your job, is the business plan. Okay, what is it that you want to do? Get clarity on what it does to take that, and then reverse engineer what are the activities that are going to lead to that big project, which is whatever that number is.
And so one of the easiest examples I hear regularly is that people want to make $100,000 or people want to make $1 million, right? Those are the two easiest ones.
Yeah.
You hear these round number responses, and I've been guilty of these things before. And what I realize is if they're not aligned to what that will get you or what that does for you, then your actions will not line up to actually get the outcome.
Right.
And that's because if when you make $100,000, that becomes your worth, then it's not likely to be the outcome that you get. There has to be something else that is attached to why you want that goal specifically in order for you to attain it oftentimes.
You mean money doesn't bring happiness?
Well,
it's diminishing returns. You got to have a big why. Right?
Yeah, that's right. I love that money does bring diminishing returns happiness at a certain point, right? It certainly does bring an aspect of and an element of happiness to it. However, it does have diminishing returns for sure.
Happiness is fleeting. Like you're happy at that one moment. You have the dopamines, but as soon as the money's gone,
yeah,
you got different problems.
So in order to avoid failure, the agent has to clearly define and align their goals, and the alignment has to be on what they actually want and what they're not willing to give up in order to get that.
This is the thing, y'all. You want to make $1 million, it takes some sacrifice to take.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people say, I want to make $1 million, but when you find out what it takes to make $1 million, you might not be willing willing to do it. So
that's right.
You have to have clarity on what it is that it takes to do that goal. And then you got to be willing to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, like I want a 6-pack, but I'm not willing to do what it takes to get one right now.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so, you see how I'm rolling.
So I find, in fact, that actually leads me to number 2, which is that we don't prioritize self-care. Right? Either we don't understand self-care because we're in an industry where so much of what we do is centered on serving someone else and their goals and their life and helping them get through the challenges, through the stress, through the most anxious time of their life, arguably, that we we neglect to prioritize ourselves. We neglect to be selfish with the things that actually give us energy so that we can go serve people more effectively. I'm guilty of this one, what seems like every week.
This is the worst thing that I'm totally terrible at. Because there's people say work-life balance. I'm like work-life, smirk-life. Like everything is one big blur. The one thing is, and I know I've talked about this on the show, I'm very transparent. I burned out. And so my job on the daily is actually, the one thing that I've learned in 2021 is the less I do, the doper I am.
Okay.
And so by me, that's self-care. Like when you take everything on and the cumulative like anxiety that comes along with running a big business, if you don't take care of yourself, that manifests itself in ways in your business that you do not want.
What is self-care for you? Like what would be something that you do for self-care?
So to me, by me following a system and a routine that allows me to run at a level to where I don't have the distress or the anxiety, being able to unplug, being able to take time away and not think. And actually what happens, like when you take time away, great ideas come up.
Yeah.
And then I write them down and then I'm able to implement them when I'm back into people don't understand, like when you're getting your teeth kicked in, you're learning a lot, but you're not able to implement what you're learning until you're able to step back and I say heal, take step back. Like when you're in the gym, you lift weights, and then your growth comes from resting.
Yeah.
And that's the same. This is a muscle. My growth, people ask me, Mike, you've grown so much. How have you grown? You know why I've grown? I've taken a step back and I reflect and I now implement when I was getting my teeth kicked in, all those lessons that I learned.
Yeah.
And so self-care, I run at a level where I never get hot. Does that make sense?
It does. For me, I think it's probably even more tangible, arguably, than that. Is I've tried to audit what gives me energy and what takes energy.
Absolutely.
And then do the things that I find that like, what would I do if I had a week to do nothing? What were the activities that I would do, right? What are the things that I would desire or want to do if I had nothing else to do today or this week or this month? And so for me, some of the things that I find are best for, like, Lauren and I were in Vermont a few weeks ago and went to the spa at the resort, and I was like, man, I might stay here all damn day. Like, I think they had this like sauna, steam room, hot tub, like massage, like circuit. I'm like, I'm just gonna just do this until they close. Like, I probably made the damn steam room, sauna, and hot tub circuit like 3 times, and I did it while I was listening to stories. And I think about like, what are the things that I used to love to do as a kid, because they're probably things that as an adult I somehow fell out of love with because I didn't do them anymore.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I used to love to write stories and listen to stories. And because of like the imagination that comes with having to like write and hear good stories. So I'll listen to like everything from the Wondery podcast company. So that's like the one app that I'll pay the premium subscription for because the storytelling's amazing.
They do a great job.
And so I sat in the sauna and the hot tub and listened to stories all damn day long.
Yep. I say I listen to books a lot. I think a lot. I pray a lot. Like, that's my self-care. Like, I spend a lot of time praying. And when I pray, it's just thinking. And so self-care for me, I was terrible at this. I was balls to the wall, red line, and you just can't. You just have to unplug.
Well, I know that for me, my number one priority for 2022 is to be more like Tyler. I'm going to prioritize my physical health above all other aspects of my business plan for next year because one, I've done a terrible job at it, and it's showing up in my waistline here. And two, I track like everything in life, and when I look at like my watch, when I look at my heart rate, when I look at like the health of sleep that I get, it is gradually getting worse by the day. And that's something that I have to make a priority if I'm going to actually achieve the longer term goals that I have.
Yeah.
Right. Is that I have to make that priority number one. So making health above all else a priority actually leads me to failure reason number 3, which is that I and others, all of us, underestimate the power of compounding.
Totally.
Right. It's like I just said how I underestimated the power of compounding as it pertains to my physical health. Right. Is day after day I made a choice that didn't align with my long-term goals, and as a result, I wake up one day and then my heart rate is higher than it was 18 months ago or 24 months ago. Right. And so we neglect to realize that the Big Mac that finally caused us to have a heart attack wasn't actually the Big Mac that caused us the heart attack.
It's all the other Big Macs.
It's every Big Mac that compounded before that, right? And so what we find is that for agents who fail to hit their goals, it's because they underestimate the power of consistently done activities over time, right? It is doing an activity every day that gets you a little bit closer and a little bit closer and a little bit closer to one day having exponential outcomes and exponential results. But it's all of those little days that you have to show up and put in the work to finally get the outcome.
I tell people all the time, everybody wants to lose weight. Nobody wants to go to the gym.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like it's going to the gym every day. You might have gained 0.5 pounds a day, but one day,
Yeah, that's right.
after 2 weeks, it's going to start falling off, and you just got to keep going.
And it might not, and in business, in real estate, it might not be 2 weeks, right? Like I see, in fact, we have an agent who is with us who's incredibly talented and showed up and did the work. And after 10 months, sold one house. And then by the time his 36th month rolled around, he'd sold 75 houses in the last 12 months. But in the first 11, he showed up and did the job consistently and got one sale. By year 3, he was selling 75 homes a year.
Wow.
Because of the compounding effect of the work put in on the front end. I was sharing with the team last week, we did our goal planning advance as a team. And I sold 7 houses my first year, and yet it paid off pretty well because I continued to like compound the activities on the front end before it finally worked its way out to being really effective by like year 2 and 3.
Right.
But you have to do all the hard work on the front end and understand that consistency is the win.
That's it.
Measuring the outcome is not the way to set a goal. Having action-based goals that compound over time or what generates massive exponential results.
So measure the days you go to the gym, not necessarily the scale.
That's right. That's rich. That's right. So measure the days you show up at the office and put in the work as a real estate agent and meet people to talk about real estate. That's the actual win itself.
That's the win.
Right. So the win has to be shrinking it down to something that's actionable.
I saw this picture, and I don't know if you guys can imagine this. I saw a picture where there's a ladder. There's 2 ladders. There's one ladder where the rungs are spaced where the guy can climb up to the top, and there's the exact same ladder, and there's space to where the person can't reach. If you set your goals to where you can reach everyone, you're going to go up that ladder. But if you set that goal too high, you'll never hit the first rung.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And that's all you're saying.
Yeah, that's right. Is that you have to do it in a way that's achievable, in a way that's actionable, and then you have to celebrate that win.
Yeah.
Right? It's not achieving the 100th closing this year that is the win. It's the showing up on Monday when you don't want to show up on Monday and doing the work. And then when you're done, go home.
Yeah.
So that you can show up again tomorrow and do the work. It's
every day.
Time on.
Every day.
That's right.
So if you do all the work one day, I'll have somebody say, we'll say lead generate, making phone calls. Make 50 phone calls every day, or they'll come in and they'll make 300 phone calls. It's not that you just came in and made 300 phone calls. That's taxing on you.
Yeah.
That you did that.
Yeah.
But then if you make those 50 phone calls every day, it's less.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The number of agents last week who at Advance who said that they didn't lead generate and yet sold 40 plus houses as agents was kind of funny. Segue. It was actually funny because they were like, we didn't do the work and yet we hit our goals or exceeded them, and that's because they didn't give enough credit to the power of compounding. Is that because they had compounded that best practice for 3+ years, they no longer had to do the same work that they once did.
Yeah.
And I think about it that a CPA or an attorney or anyone who does like a highly skilled job doesn't have to put in the same number of hours in year 10 that they did in year 1.
Right.
Because they've gained experience and wisdom and tribal knowledge that they no longer have to put in the time that they once did. But the only way to get that is compounding. You have to do it time on task over time in order to get that outcome. And then the fourth reason why I see agents fail is that their environment doesn't align with their habits. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes who we are and the outcomes that we achieve, and yet we neglect to give it the credit that it is deserved. And that's because environment seems like it has no impact on what you do every day, and yet what I found is that environment is what allows the goals to become reality if it's structured correctly. The easiest way that this makes sense to me is thinking about using this weight loss analogy. If there are cookies on the counter in my house, like there are, I promise you I will eat them. In fact, what I did right before we went on.
Them.
That's
I
right.
just watched you eat them.
That's right.
It was just a little bite.
You didn't even ask me if I wanted one.
That's right.
It was a nibble.
So
You didn't even have a whole
that
one.
is a perfect example of the environmental not aligning with the habit I just told you that I wanted, right? Which was prioritizing health.
Right.
And yet having something in the environment that isn't aligned with my habits is what causes what amounted to be a really subconscious response to just have a bite 3 minutes before we turn the camera on and have a conversation about
solid breakfast.
Right?
Yeah.
So then I think about how does environment show up as a real estate agent? And then knowing that environment is one of the top reasons that causes someone to fail, how do we create the environment that causes us to win instead?
So you just have, for one, I think people have to actually give it the credit that it's due.
Yeah.
Because for one, like I did it, but when we were prepping for the show, I discounted this because I was like, I could work from a locker room or from my car. But in all reality, we spent a lot of time talking about environmental pressures in my personal life that affect my business.
Yeah.
And how those need to be fixed. And so if this does not this is a huge deal. And what's so huge about it is it's invisible.
Yeah, it is.
It's invisible. Like if your environment, that includes people, that includes like the space in which you are in, that includes the tools and the systems. If those aren't in line with where you're trying to go, you have to fix that.
Yeah. In the book, The One Thing, Jay and Gary talk about building a bunker. Right, and the concept of building a bunker is creating an environment that aligns with what you said you were going to focus on.
Yeah.
And then having it be so reinforced that distractions can't come into the bunker and disrupt you from what you set out to go accomplish. And that is one of the hardest things to implement and to maintain and create, especially in our house with a 4-year-old who I love dearly, but he don't give a damn about my bunker or about my environment.
Yeah, he don't care. He just wants to see Blue's Clues or whatever. That's his thing. So
what I know is that if I want to attain that level of focus, that means I have to leave, right? Is I have to go somewhere where the environment can align with my outcome, because I can't control what a toddler wants to do. Because
you'll be
right?
distracted, you won't get. And this is the thing we talk about, like your self-care, like if you're dealing with like stress because you can't get your work done, that's another thing that we haven't really, and that cumulative effect can kind of take advantage. So I think this is really a really important thing that doesn't really get discussed.
Yeah, like another is this. Lauren wants a Peloton for Christmas, okay? And I'm like, this is great. Like, okay, awesome. Normally, I'm on board for that. Not that I'm not on board for that, right? Yeah. However, my first thought was environment. It was like, now, I just mentioned that we have a toddler, right, who, like, is, as you guys know, like, if there's someone here, he has to be like all about, he's all him all the time, right? Running 110 mile an hour.
Yep. Yeah, he's at that age where he runs everywhere.
Literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm tired watching him.
Homie, right? Like, homie is nonstop,
breathing hard,
full speed all day, every day, right? And I'm like, when is he gonna leave her alone long enough for her to ride a bike?
Yeah.
That was the first thing that goes in my head. It's like, that's the habit you want. The environment is not currently aligned for that habit.
Right. So how can you make that happen?
That's right. So,
because that's why we often fail in our weight loss and our business.
That's right.
Is because we have these goals, but the alignment, it's the application of that is where we fall.
Yep. And so in order to ensure that an agent, it does not fail to achieve their desired outcome, they have to have a plan that accounts for the environment that aligns with their goals. And that could be something that gets really intricate and gets a bit more complex oftentimes than is necessary. Example I'll give is, I realized there's a couple things. I have a leadership report that's due every week at every Friday at noon. I have probably hit that noon deadline 3 out of 30 weeks. Like, okay. For whatever, I'm like, there's something that, like, I miss that damn deadline every week. Okay. I have a decision to make.
Okay.
I either have to change something in the environment and change a system for it.
Right. Or create a system.
That's right. Yeah. I either have to create a system or change something in my environment, whether that's my calendar or something in my routine that's causing me to miss that deadline. Right. And so in doing that, or like, I teach a class every Monday at noon, and I end up spending a lot of my noon prepping for that, a lot of my Monday prepping for that class.
Right.
Well, now I have someone else prepping it to get it to me by Friday so that I can have it reviewed and ready sooner than what I was doing previously. I had to make environmental changes to get the outcome that I was missing.
Got it.
Because I was not hitting my own deadlines, my own goals. And I had to start to audit my environment that says, okay, something in my environment is causing this, whether that's a system or a habit or a person, something's missing in the environment to give me the outcome. I've got to change the environment to change the outcome. But, Mike, before we transition, I want to talk about on the next episode is that environment is not just physical, right? There is a mental and spiritual environment that we all live in that also impacts whether or not agents fail to achieve their goals. I want to talk about that environment next.